And Linda's at a meeting, so she may get in or may not later on.
I don't think she's coming at all.
Okay, I don't think so. And is everybody's computer still, let's say, during a practice session, or is it being
Recording
turned
in
on?
progress.
You're good to
Recording
go.
in progress. We're now
There
there.
you go.
So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. This is the Federal Way City Council LUTC meeting, a Land Use and Transportation Committee. And can Council Chambers, can you hear us all?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
So it shows on channel 21, it shows council chambers, but it doesn't show us.
What does that mean?
Well, usually on a Zoom meeting, you can see who's talking, but on the channel 21, it's just, oh, there you go. Okay, never mind. It's fixed.
Okay, so Jack Walsh should be showing up shortly. He was rushing to City Hall when I was talking to him. So we have two of the committee members here, so I suppose we could get started. Is that correct, EJ?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Oh, okay. So we've called the meeting to order, and the first order on our agenda is public comments. Is there any public comment or anything to read into the record?
There are a few. We have a couple to read in, and then we have somebody that would like to present.
Okay. Would you like to have the person who wants to present first? And then we'll do the ones to read into the public comment?
Sounds good. We have Russell Wolf for the
And I should,
presenter.
and before we do that, I should make sure everyone knows that everyone from the council is here attending, except for Linda, who has another meeting that she's at, and Jack Walsh will be here shortly, because I asked him to come to the chambers when I couldn't get there. So now we'll start with our public comment, and thank you all for signing in and joining.
Okay, Jack Wolf, or Russell Wolf, I'm sorry. Yes.
Hi, Russell Wolf. I have no idea what I'm doing here. However, I'll give it a shot.
You're doing fine, just relax, and you just talk to us.
Just relax. Do you have a drink? No. I am here regarding a request for a comprehensive plan amendment to rezone a parcel. This is the property at 1st and 312th Street. It's on the northeast corner of that intersection. And our neighbor informed us of this attempted rezone from single-family residence to multifamily. And we don't recall getting a notice, but our neighbor shared it with us. Anyway, we're really concerned about the drainage, how this property rezone and development would affect the surface water drainage in that area. We live a couple hundred yards to the east of that property off of 3rd Court, and it's a wetland area. We have an area just to the north of our property that routinely fills up with water. It's a native growth protective easement, and then it drains to the south into a pond and then through a culvert underneath 312th Street. But we're just really concerned about how this development could affect the surface water drainage and very possibly cause flooding problems for our property and our neighbor's property. So we're very concerned about that. And I don't know where to go from here on that, but we would be very concerned about this proposed plan amendment.
Okay. Thank you very much for the comment. You've come to the right place to express your concerns and your comments.
All right.
Okay.
Is there,
No,
now
we-
do we have some issues, some things to read into the record?
Yes, we have two to read in. The first one, I will start if we're ready. One of the main arguments for growth of the aviation industry is the demand for flights and the positive impact on the local economy with job growth, transfer of goods, etc. What is usually missing is the balance of growth in flights and the costs associated with health impacts to people living near the airport, which include increased blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, poorer learning in children, and premature births. The cost for effects on children can last for a lifetime. In addition, Dr. Chris Johnson and Alina Austin presented a December 1st, 2020 report titled Community Health and Airport Operation Related Noises and Air Pollution. Report to the legislator in response to the Washington State House Bill 1109. In the report, they presented the estimated number of excess health events reported in people living near the airport. An added cost of airline emissions is the cost of climate change. After this past year, we can all see the climate disasters around the world are happening more frequently and are very costly. On September 6, 2021, The Guardian English reported on a study done by Cambridge University College London and Imperial College London, as well as partners in Switzerland, Germany, the US, and Austria. The study reported that a flight from the United Kingdom to New York would cost the global economy more than $3,000 in the long run due to the climate crisis. For example, it is around 25 round-trip flights per day for a similar distance for a year would add $55 million to the cost for just SeaTac. Adding the true number and distance of flights each day coming to and from SeaTac, and it would dwarf the economic benefits of the flights. The actual cost of flying needs to be considered before spending more funds on airport expansion. Instead, think of all the ways the local area could spend the money to benefit everyone. Remember the following saying, flying benefits the few at the expense of the many. And that's the end of the first one.
Thank you.
Okay. And the second one says, in 2019, after many contiguous meetings at the Planning Commission, LUTC, and full City Council meetings, the Council passed the rezoning of the Milton Road area. As part of that approval, Council directed staff to eliminate the extension of 19th Way, 376th Street, from the Regency Woods development to the Milton Road. Staff reported back that a traffic study needed to be performed to eliminate the extension from the comprehensive master plan. A traffic study was approved but has not been started. At the 7/12/21 Planning Commission meeting, the city traffic engineer, Rick Perez, and I had a talk after the meeting and an email exchange concerning the block perimeter rule. I have learned that the city's planning staff has used this block perimeter rule to force a connection between the new development along the Milton Road and Regency Woods development when development occurs, violating the spirit of the City Council's direction that a connection between Regency Woods and the Milton Road be eliminated. There are examples of where federal way has allowed exceptions to the block perimeter rule that can be found in the Regency Woods alone. According to the FWRC 19.135.070, exceptions can be made if the improvement as required would not be harmonious with existing street improvements, would not function properly or safely, or would not be advantageous to the neighborhood or the city as a whole. Also, unusual topographic or physical conditions preclude the construction of the improvements as required. The road extension would require construction within a wetland or wetland buffer, a physical condition. The extensions would add significant truck traffic in front of an existing tot lot, a safety concern. With those reasons and for all the other reasons stated at several public meetings on the subject, I am asking the LUTC and the council to direct the Public Works Director to grant an exception to the block perimeter rules in conjunction with any connection of the development to Regency Woods so that no extension of 19th Way and 376th Street would occur. In December of 2021, there were 2 accidents on Highway 99 between Spring Valley and Porter Way that closed all lanes of 99. During that time, several trucks drove down 19th Way, 376th Street, looking for an alternative way to access the Milton Road since traffic on the road had slowed to a crawl. With over 1 million square feet of warehouses going into the Lloyd gravel pit, traffic will be backed up to Milton Road and trucks will look for alternative path around it through Regency Woods if the connection is allowed to be built. I ask for you to direct the planning department to eliminate a connection between any new development along Milton Road and Regency Woods, regardless of the traffic study. I believe that the traffic study is a matter of policy, not a legal requirement, and it can be eliminated from the planning staff workload, saving money for the city for other uses. Thank you for your attention and consideration to this issue. Mark Spar. That's it.
Are there any other documents to read into the record?
No more documents.
Okay, any additional public comment?
Not that I have, no.
Okay. Seeing none, we will move on.
What about Bernadine? Did she ever get connected?
Let me check and see if she.
Sorry to interrupt you,
No.
Chair.
Thank you very much.
I do see a hand raised. Just one moment. Okay. I've unmuted Xanthia.
Hi, my name is Xanthia Kirschenbaum. Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you.
Welcome very much. We look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you for letting me comment. I am the neighbor of Russell Wolf that told him about the 2022 comprehensive plan amendments and how that could potentially affect our parcels. We live within wetlands. Both of our houses are within wetlands. I have been, our house did flood many, many years ago, and that created the culvert underneath 312. And so I'm very well versed in how development in other areas can potentially flood existing homeowners. So as a matter of fact, there is an area there that's called Tebow's Depression that is just south of our property, the Wolves and my property, and Shirley Tebow was my mom. So she was definitely part of planning on how to mitigate water, surface water. So my concern is those three parcels that are on 312th and First Avenue, how the wetland, that's wetland there. That has standing water for a good part of the winter. And is that considered wetlands then? I couldn't find anything on it. And if so, is there a wetland buffer? And if they're going to rezone and potentially put apartments there, that's going to be a lot of concrete. That's going to be a lot of surface water. Where is that water going to go? How is that going to affect my 100-year floodline? How is that going to affect the floodline, Russell Wolf's floodline, who's our neighbor? I know the water needs to go somewhere. Also, diversity of housing. Just south of that 312th and First Avenue, just in that corner, there's Greystone Apartments. That is a huge apartment complex. So if we rezone, then we're going to have another large apartment complex that's going to be in the same intersection. Does that seem diverse? It doesn't. To me, I'm concerned about that. Also, I'm concerned about the protection of plants and animal habitat, you know, like native growth protection. There's some beautiful fir and cedar trees that are within that property, and I want to know how those are going to be protected. Thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you very much for coming before and giving your comment to us. We appreciate it. From the chambers, is there any other public comment before we move on?
I have a message for the chair. Apparently, the first letter was from Bernadine. First letter. I just talked to Bernadine on the phone, and she said Sarah read her.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
Then
thank you, Sarah.
She got read.
She thanks you. She thought she did a great job.
Okay. Well, now that we've gone through public comment, we'll go to committee business. Does any committee members have anything they'd like to bring up before we go to our agenda?
Not this one,
Okay.
anyway.
Okay. So we'll move. Jack, is Jack on the
Yeah, I'm here in the chamber now.
You're our eyes and ears of the chamber. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move forward to the approval of minutes. This is minutes from the last land use meeting, December 6, 2021. Does anybody have any questions or anything to approve the minutes?
I move that they be approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, now we'll move forward to the next, pull back my agenda back up. The next item on the, our docket. Sorry, my computer just went away. Got to go back to my agenda. And this would be section process 2022 amendments to comprehensive plan. Just to put it in perspective, we've heard two pieces of public comment about this particular item. And this will be an item for action. And is there a staff presentation?
Yes, there is. Good evening, Chair Dovey and members of the Land Use Transportation Committee. Just one moment as I pull up the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can everyone see that on their screens from home?
Not yet.
Not yet? Oh, whoops. Okay, that's right. Zoom. Sorry, one moment.
We can now see it.
Okay, great. So again, good evening, Chair Dovey and members of the Land Use Transportation Committee. My name is Natalie Kamenicki, and I am an associate planner with the Community Development Department. And I'm here to present the amendment selection process for the 2022 Comprehensive Plan amendments for site-specific proposals and text amendments proposed by Public Works. So a quick procedural summary of what we're looking at tonight. We will look at both the site-specific requests and text amendments by Public Works. And at this meeting, the committee can provide recommendation to the full council on the docketed proposals. That city council meeting will be held February 15th. And at that meeting, the final selection action for council would be voted on at that date. So the options that the committee would be looking at tonight are listed here. One would be to recommend all proposed amendments for placement on the final docket for further evaluation by staff and consideration by the Planning Commission. Recommend one or some of the proposed amendments for placement on the final docket and evaluation by staff and consideration by the Planning Commission. This action would require the committee to identify which of the proposed amendments to move forward. And third option would be to recommend none of the proposed amendments placed on the final docket. We will also revisit this slide at the end of the presentation. Just wanted to give a quick summary of what we're looking at tonight. The city has received two site-specific comprehensive plan amendments, the first being the Lee property. It's comprised of 3 parcels, a total of 4.03 acres, and it's located at the northeast intersection of First Avenue South and South 312th Street. The request is to go from the current single-family residential RS 7.2 zone to multifamily residential RM 1800, which is 1 unit per 1,800 square feet. The second site-specific proposal is for the Rivera property. The request is for a comprehensive plan amendment of a single parcel, total of 1.26 acres, located at 1600 South 304th Street, and that designation would change from the existing professional office to community business designation. Public Works has a list of text amendments for non-motorized transportation. First being City Center, extending the BPA Trail from 11th Place and 13th Avenue South along the north side of South 324th Street to 23rd Avenue South, and along the west side of 23rd Avenue South from South 324th Street to South 320th Street. This project is included in the city CIP as project number 16. The Federal Way Transit Center pedestrian connection would be to construct sidewalk to preserve pedestrian access between large blocks within the city center. This project is included under city CIP project number 29. The North Fork West Highlabos Trail would be to construct a trail within the Spring Valley along North Fork of West Highlabos Creek. This project is also part of the city CIP as project number 42. Additional non-motorized facilities around South Federal Way Transit Station include South 359th Street to SR 99 to SR 161, construct sidewalk and bike lanes on both sides of the street. 16th Avenue South, South 359th Street to South 364th Way, construct sidewalk and bike lanes on both sides of the street. South 59th Street and SR 161, construct staircase and ADA accessible ramp. I-5 crossing from South 359th to 20th Avenue South, construct non-motorized crossing. 20th Avenue South and South 360th, SR 161 to 32nd Avenue South, construct sidewalk and bike lanes on both sides of the street. And Milton Road South, SR 161 to South 369th Street, construct sidewalk and bike lanes on both sides of the street. At this time, we're going to circle back to the site-specific requests for a little bit more information on those properties. This, starting with the Lee property, the site is comprised of 3 parcels, total of 4.03 acres, and again, located on the north side of South 312th Street and 1st Avenue South at the northeast intersection. The existing land use is vacant. The existing designation is single-family high-density RS 7.2, which is 1 unit per, or minimum lot size for single-family dwelling, 7,200 square feet. The requested designation is multifamily residential RM 1800, which is 1 unit per 1,800 square feet. The property owner is requesting higher density zone classification to develop residential units that support population increases projected within the city. The applicant has cited Federal Way Comprehensive Plan Chapter 2.3 and Figure 113 population projection in support of the requested zone. Adjacent property uses and land use to the north is single-family residential 7.2, and there is single-family dwellings as the existing land use. To the south, across South 312th Street, it is multifamily, residential multifamily 2400, which is 1 unit per 2400 square feet, and there are existing apartments as noted by our public comment. To the east of the property, it is single-family RS 7.2, 1 unit per 7,200 square feet, and there is an existing single-family dwelling. To the west of the site, across 1st Avenue South, there are single-family dwelling units, again, the RS 7.2 zone, and also the neighborhood business at the intersection of 1st Avenue South and South 312th Street. And there are single-family dwellings, convenience store, and also a pizza restaurant. A bit of discussion on the site. It was previously rezoned from professional office to neighborhood business in 2005, and then again rezoned to RS 7.2 in 2017. Again, there are single-family residents to the north and east. The RM 1800 zoning would be consistent with the comprehensive plan, which housing needs are expected to continue and rise in the foreseeable future. And we will move on to site-specific request 2 for the Rivera property. This is a single parcel, 1.26 acres in size, and it's located at 1600 South 304th Street at the intersection of South 304th and 16th Avenue South. The existing use is vacant. The existing designation is professional office, and the applicant requests designation of community business at this location. Reason for request, the applicant has previously obtained project approval for office building at this location back in 2007 on a land use permit that has since expired. And he states that the community business zone affords the flexibility in retail and office uses as well as residential uses, and would complement the neighborhood. The surrounding land use at the Rivera property, to the north is single-family residential, RS 9.6, which is 1 unit per, and minimum lot size of 9,600 square feet, and there are existing single-family dwellings. To the south, the zone is community business, and Federal Way High School is located there. East of the site, the properties are zoned community business and professional office, with existing medical and dental offices directly adjacent, and religious assembly use across 16th Avenue South. To the west of the property is existing multifamily residential 2400, 1 unit per 2,400 square feet, and there are existing attached dwelling units at that property. Just quick discussion, the community business zone does afford the flexibility of office, retail, and residential uses. The immediate area is developed with a variety of land uses, including the Federal Way High School, mixed retail uses, office uses, religious assembly, vehicle service station, as well as the surrounding neighborhood of residential single-family dwelling units and multifamily attached dwelling units. There are existing properties in the immediate area that are also zoned BC. We'll now switch to the Public Works text amendments, the City Center extension of the BPA trail. There are a few exhibits in the council packet, the committee packet tonight, demonstrating where those would be and a cross-section of the roadway, and how that extension would work from South 324th Street and 23rd Trail all the way out to the west side and up to 320th.
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Absolutely.
What is the difference between extending the BPA trail there than as opposed to just the existing sidewalk? How's the BPA trail different from the existing sidewalk on there?
That's a great question. I believe that would be best addressed by our traffic engineer, Rick Perez, and I will step aside.
Thank you. For the record, Rick Perez, City Traffic Engineer. So what we're trying to create here is a multi-use path, which the standard for which is 12 feet wide. And none of the sidewalks there currently are 12 feet wide. The idea being that with that width, you can have both bicyclists and pedestrians coexisting at the volumes that you might see on other parts of the trail, and hopefully more when we make this connection to the light rail station.
Thank you.
I have a question on that also. Rick?
Yes.
So would it be paved or would it be dirt?
No, it would be paved.
The whole thing would be paved?
Yes.
Thank you.
So it'd basically be just widening this existing sidewalk then?
Could be, might be a hybrid, could be sidewalk, concrete sidewalk, could be also be asphalt, depending on where we widen it and how. So engineering decision yet to be made. But that's the general idea. Have a paved surface, continuous 12-foot wide, and separated from the roadway with a 6-foot buffer.
Thank you.
Next up is the Federal Way Transit Center pedestrian connection that is illustrated here in Exhibit D. It is to construct sidewalk to preserve the pedestrian access between the large blocks within city center. And this is included under the city's CIP project number 29. There is also a text amendment for the inclusion of North Fork West Highlabos Trail. This would be constructing a trail within Spring Valley along North Fork west of the Highlabos Creek. We can see the location identified tentatively as the parcel in Exhibit E. Typical cross-section for environmental and sensitive areas for boardwalk, and trail cross-section in the non-sensitive area as asphalt. This project is also included under the city's CIP project number 42. And again, the non-motorized facilities around South Federal Way Transit Station, these 6 items that I have read previously. There are no additional exhibits at this time to share. The selection criteria is listed in Federal Way Revised Code 19.80.080.2, and it contains the selection criteria for amendments for further consideration, and I've summarized them from the staff report as followed. Criteria 1, whether the same area or issue was studied during the last amendment process and conditions in the immediate vicinity have significantly changed so as to make the requested change within the public interest. These site-specific requests and Public Works text amendments have not been studied during the last amendment cycle. Oops. The second criteria, the proposed amendment is consistent with the overall vision of the comprehensive plan. Response to that criteria is that both proposed site-specific amendments and the Public Works text amendments are consistent with the overall vision of the comprehensive plan, as they support residential and employment growth and improve mobility and increase safety for non-motorized transportation and pedestrians. Criterion 3, whether the proposed amendment meets the existing state and local laws, including GMA. None of the requested amendments would be in conflict with local or state laws if subsequent development of the parcels are in compliance with local and state regulations, including but not limited to the Federal Way Revised Code and the State Environmental Policy Act under SEPA. Criteria 4, in the case of text amendments or other amendments or goals to policies, whether the requests benefit the city as a whole versus a selected group. These text amendments proposed by Public Works are in an effort to create safe non-motorized transportation within the city, and safe walking and biking routes are a benefit to the city as a whole. If the request meets the criteria set forth in the subsection we just summarized, it shall be further evaluated according to the following criteria. First being whether the proposed amendments can be incorporated into planned or active projects. Neither of the privately initiated, site-specific, are located in or near any other planning activities currently underway. The Public Works public initiated amendment, if the City Council determines these proposed pedestrian and non-motorized transportation should be delayed, they can be incorporated in the periodic update. Next criterion, the amount of analysis necessary to reach a recommendation on the request. If a large-scale study is required, a request may be delayed until the following year due to workload. Response to that criteria is none of the requests require such large-scale study to preclude them being within this amendment cycle. Next criterion, number 3, volume of requests received. A large volume of requests may necessitate that some requests be reviewed in a subsequent year. And the response to that criterion is the submitted amendments can be accommodated during this process. Lastly, the order of requests received would be the Lee property, the Rivera property, and then lastly, the Public Works text amendments. So we're going to circle back to what the options are for the committee tonight. First option, recommend all proposed amendments for placement on the final docket for evaluation by staff and consideration by the Planning Commission, or recommendation to City Council, rather, and then Planning Commission. I apologize for that. Recommend one or more of the proposed amendments for further evaluation by staff and confirmation by the city council, and then review by planning commission. This option 2 would require the committee to identify which of the proposed amendments would move forward to full council. And thirdly, recommend none of the proposed amendments be placed on the final docket. And the mayor's recommendation is provided as option 1. Oops. And that will conclude this briefing, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, I see the screen are there any questions so far from any of the committee members? Yes, Susan.
Thank you. So on the Lee property, which would be First and 312, going from single-family homes to multifamily, would that not require a large-scale study to see how that would impact the infrastructure, the areas around it, and the schools?
That's a great question, but the site-specific development permits that would come after the proposal would address Federal Way Revised Code for wetlands, surface water management, traffic, things of those nature. So there's not a project proposed with this comprehensive plan amendment.
There might not be a project proposed, but if we're saying that we would approve having multifamily there instead of single family, we're changing the use of the property, and it would certainly have an impact. Wouldn't we want to study it ahead of time to say that yes, it would work out, or no, it wouldn't work out?
If the proposal is selected for further analysis, it would be reviewed through SEPA, and a SEPA determination would be rendered from that review. And I believe it would be unlikely an environmental impact statement would be required for that type of proposal.
I have some of the same concerns, and also with the direction the Federal Way's been going with more and more multifamily rather than single family, I have significant concerns with that as well. And, is that the direction that we want to be going with the comprehensive plan, even accelerating that more?
Lydia has her hand up for a question. Oh, Lydia, no.
Yes, I do, and it's regarding the LEAP project also. I personally, my question actually is, do you know what GMPC requires us to have for housing in Federal Way? Does anybody have that information? And the reason I'm asking is, I do support multifamily housing because I know there's a shortage of housing throughout our region and actually nationally. However, the concerns that were raised earlier around flooding and or maybe even traffic mitigation are very important. So how can we marry those two and still have the multifamily as well as meet the needs that were just required? But I'm also curious about the requirement that our city or the housing that the number of housing that we need to have in Federal Way. I don't know that, but if you have that information, that'd be helpful for council to determine which route to go. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Tron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious on this Lee property, potentially how many units could be built if we approve this?
That's a great question. And it could definitely be looked at further if the proposal is selected for further analysis.
I think that questions like that really need to be answered before altering the comprehensive plan for this.
So,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is
Brian Davis, Community Development Director. If I could make a comment on
Yes, please.
what we're talking about tonight. So, proposed before you is a docket for selection to move forward for the analysis to give you the answers to the questions you're asking now. So really, all you're doing at this point is to identify. Is there something that just simply cannot move forward for any possible reason? A lot of the questions that you're asking do come out once we get the green light from you to actually provide those answers. So this is a very preliminary, these are all great questions, but it is a bit preliminary at this point because we don't have that information. We're only coming to you to ask if we can move forward to dedicate staff time and resources to allow the applicant to submit a full application, and then we do the full analysis that gets you the answers that you're asking tonight.
Brian, can I ask one question? Do you know if the applicant who has come forward, did they purchase the property under the old zoning when the change was made, or did they purchase it after?
Old zoning, I'm not clear on your question, I'm sorry.
Well, it was something else, and it became 72 square feet per house, and now they're asking to go to apartments. At what point were they involved in this? Were they involved when it was originally made 72 square feet per lot, or after?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. Natalie, do you have that?
Okay, thank you.
Do not know for sure. I would have to look.
Because the reason I asked the question, many people have pieces of property that they already know what it is, and that's what it is. And then other people acquire a piece of property and hope to make a substantial profit by getting it rezoned, and that's why I'm asking the question.
Yes, understood.
Chair,
Yes,
I have another question.
yes, go right ahead. I see your hand there.
Oh, thanks.
I'm learning.
Brian, on the property this isn't a piece of property that is in this discussion, but last year we said that we would study the property on First and about 327th or so for where the athletic club was, to have that multifamily. Where is that in this study?
Deputy Mayor.
How far along is that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and that's actually a really good example to describe I guess tonight, compare it to what we're discussing tonight. So the discussion we're having tonight, we had the same discussion about the property that Councilmember Honda referred to, which is most people call it the former Bally's property. The council said, yes, let's go ahead and study it. We're not approving any kind of zone change, but we'll approve it for further study. Went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission said, we don't want to see this without some kind of assurances from the developer that the development falls within parameters that we approve. The applicant initially came and said, well, we don't really know what we want to do with the property yet. The Planning Commission said, that's not good enough. We need more definitive answers. And that's where we're at right now. We're in the middle of a development agreement that we're trying to finalize with them. So that's a great example of how the process worked in my mind, where the council said, move forward for study. Planning Commission said, here are the conditions that we want, and the developer has to go back to the drawing table until there is a fully community vetted recommendation for the council to actually consider. Because right now, the ones that you're talking about tonight, these are just what we got from the, well, I think 2 of them for our applicants, the rest are some of them from the city. They're just for your consideration to move forward for further study. It may come back, like for the ones that have been commented tonight at First and 312th, may come back after we study it some more, and they say, you know what, this simply doesn't work for multifamily. Or it may come back and say, you know what, whether it's single family or multifamily, you know, the coverage is the same, and the traffic, there's capacity for it. We don't know that yet, and those are the kind of answers that we would ascertain with the green light from you to do the analysis to get those answers.
So
how old
then,
is the,
with the
there were-
proposal,
Deputy Mayor, if I could real quick, there was another example to the contrary on Steel Lake where they wanted to change that to multifamily. Council said, don't even go there. And so the application has not moved forward.
so with the proposals that the city has put forth in this proposal, those would be studied too, or those would be just assumed that since they're from the city, they've already met all the criteria that you're looking for?
No, they'd be studied as well.
Okay,
Councilmember Norton?
okay, thank you.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I have a question. So about that letter from Mark Bauer about the Regency Woods development to the Milton Road extension. What's that all about? And is that something that can be accommodated for him? It just seems like he's been on this for a while. Where is that at right now?
So I'll take that one, council member. So the original plan that he's referencing was approved by King County with a condition that when future development occurred, that road needed to be punched through, and the streets from either end were connected with effectively a missing section because the property in the middle was not developed. After that happened, the city was incorporated. It has been on our comprehensive plan to match that for a very long time. So they had a developer that was interested in developing it as single-family residential. It came before the Planning Commission on a couple of different items, but one of which was removing that. The city commissioned a traffic study to be completed to study what the impacts of removing that would be. That is underway at this time.
Oh, so you're doing the study right now?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So if we could circle back to, sorry, Councilmember.
No, I
Norton.
just wanted to, sorry, Susan asked other questions, so I apologize if I went out of order. Thank
we
you for
should-
answering my question, EJ.
Thank you. So let's circle back on what we're talking about, item B, the comprehensive code amendments to look at. My question is, how much staff time will this take? Is it budgeted already, or is this going to add to the amount of work that we're already working on? And do we have time to even consider all three of these?
Thanks for the question, Chair Dovey. So there is capacity in the normal course of business to consider these annually. And this is this year's docket, so to speak, for these kinds of requests. So they're factored into our work plan. There are application fees that offset the actual cost to the city. But this docket size is not necessarily concerning to us at this point to handle.
Okay, so if we move forward on all of these or some of these, when would they actually go to the Planning Commission, and when would they come back to the council to make a decision?
I can answer that for you.
Yeah, please.
So the recommendation that the committee would provide would be for next week, February 15th, full council meeting for final action, sending them forward for further review or not. We have a tentative time schedule. If they are selected, how that would move forward. We would first have the additional application fees and materials submitted by the applicants for the two site-specific requests, and also from the Public Works text amendments. And tentatively at this point, we would be back. We would be at Planning Commission beginning of June, and we would be back to the LUTC with the Planning Commission's recommendation July-ish. We don't have exact dates yet, but that's what we're shooting for. And then ultimately also shooting for the City Council first reading the beginning of August, and second reading for August, for September 6th. So,
Okay, and then my last question along that line, if we were to move these forward, how much money would the applicants have to invest to get it to the point where it gets to the point where somebody's going to look at it?
I do not have the permit fees directly in front of me. So it is in the thousands for the permit review. I believe between 5,000 and 6,000 per site-specific request,
Yeah.
but I don't have
Okay.
the fee
Yeah,
schedule.
that's in the
in front of
ballpark.
me, so.
Yeah, somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000. Okay, thank you. Okay. The only reason
If
I
I
asked the
can-
question, the reason I asked the question is, it is a very time-consuming process. There's some fees that these people are going to have to pay. And after, listening to my colleagues, there's lots of questions about taking, in my opinion, a piece of property that's zoned for single family and moving it to apartment. So I just bring that up because somebody's going to invest hard-earned money to go down this path that may or may not get anywhere. Is my comment.
Yeah, I have similar concerns as well. I mean, with the other items, I'm all in favor of moving them forward. But with the 312th and First Avenue property, I mean, if it's not a direction that we want to go, it seems like it would be a waste of the applicant's money and a waste of the city's time to be moving that forward.
Potentially could be. I mean, they'd have to understand that it's that for sure.
Would you like me to bring up the screen with the options for council or committee to discuss?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you could summarize the options. Does any other council member have another comment or question before we go to this?
Yeah, it seems to me as though we need to be deciding between option 1 and option 2 and not recommending the 312th and First Avenue property to move forward.
I personally look at the two options, and generally when someone brings things to the council that may make sense, then you want to look at, as long as they know the risk of not getting it approved, it probably doesn't hurt to let the staff take it to the planning commission. That's why we have them to review things. But I think that people have to understand that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
And Chair Dovey, if I could echo your comments, this is Brian Davis again. With the example with the Steel Lake property, it was the council made it very clear at the time that it had a lot of questions about rezoning something multifamily on the lake. So that wasn't an outright denial or not denial, but they didn't outright refuse to let it move forward. But the message was pretty clear, and I think if all of these were to move forward, including the First and 312th, I think this meeting's recorded. The applicants they're following what we're discussing now through the process. They're aware of, or they will be aware of the council's trepidation if this were to move forward, and they could then make a judgment call whether they're not moving forward. Or again, you could not select it. But applicants do follow the process and observe what feedback they're getting.
So if I can make one comment about that, having experience on a council many years ago, there was a lot of development in an area around 348, 356, which had a potential water issue. And we used to, when people bring up water and we're flowing to Muir Lake, I'm sure that's where the water goes. We had a lot of people come forward and say, hey, my houses are getting water, and we had an amazing flood one year, and so it caused a lot of issues. So that would be something that this person or this area would really have to mitigate, in my opinion.
Chair Dovey, with that
Yeah.
in mind, you know, and with the idea that the applicant should be very aware that there may be significant challenges, would it be appropriate for me to make a motion that we, for option 1 and move this forward?
Yeah, I would agree with option 1, but I would ask our staff to make sure the applicant listens to the recorded message or the meeting so they understand what was said at our land use meeting. Is there a second?
Yeah, I can second that.
Okay, so Jack, will you go over the motion one time so everybody can understand what we're moving forward?
Okay, I move that we recommend all proposed amendments for placement on the final docket for evaluation by staff and consideration by the Planning Commission.
And that's moved by Councilmember Walsh and seconded by Councilmember Trey. All in favor?
Aye.
Hang on a second. I'm sorry,
excuse
Mr.
me.
Chair. I think the proposed motion should have been the committee recommends forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval.
I thank you very much for your we're moving ahead fast. Thank you.
Thanks for the correction.
Okay,
So moved.
so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much to the staff and their presentation, and thank you to those who had public come on and comment. Let's move to item B on our agenda. Item C, authorization to apply for conservation future tax levy grant.
All right. Get this back to the right spot.
And this is asking for money, so it may go very quickly.
That's the hope. Okay. Good evening, Chair Dovey, LETC members, and council members. Let me get this to share. Oh gosh. I can't see that part. Okay. This is Kent Smith with the Public Works Department. I'm here for the authorization to apply for Conservation Futures Tax Levy Grant. So the policy question is, should the council authorize staff to submit a Conservation Futures Tax Levy grant application? And a little bit of background, the Public Works in support of the Parks Department identified possible grant funding opportunities for conservation property acquisition. And this included 3 potential parcels within the West Highlabos Basin Creek Corridor between South 356th Street and South 373rd. And then we identify these as likely to be competitive for the 2023 Conservation Futures Tax Levy funding. So on the left, in red, is the 3 parcels we identified. And then on the right is some of the existing parcels that we have already purchased or are owned through WSDOT or similar that for conservation properties. These last few allow us to kind of combine the areas to make a cohesive amount to potentially then build a path or a maybe some parking or related parks infrastructure so that these properties can be preserved as they are. The funding for this, there is $1 million that the city has already identified for this project, and then we're seeking a $1.5 million potentially from the Conservation Futures Tax Levy to bring the total cost to $2.5 million to purchase these 3 properties. So the options considered, 1, to authorize staff to submit the proposed Conservation Futures Tax Levy grant application, or 2, do not authorize staff and provide direction. And the mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the February 15th, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. And
Okay.
any questions?
Council, is there any questions?
My question is, the $1,000 or the $1 million that the city would be providing, what is the source of it? Is that funds that needs to be strictly used for this type of program, or what is the source? Or is it general fund, or what?
We already had $1 million identified for conservation, so that was set aside already. If there's anything, EJ, if you want to.
Yeah, so it is restricted in the surface water utility fund. So there's a portion of the surface water utility fund every year has to go towards conservation efforts of property within the city or restoration of conservation. So it would come out of that funding.
Okay.
Out of that revolving funding.
All right.
Okay. Any other council questions? Oh, I see a hand.
I have a
Yes, Mayor Honda.
Thank you. The match from the city, the $1 million, what would that have been used for instead?
So that was, as EJ said, that's the money that we already have that needs to be for conservation property purchase. So it is only for conservation property purchase.
I understand that. Did we have it set aside for another?
So in short, no. There is the conservation allocation within the fund has built up over time. There was $1 million set aside associated with North Lake that, we spend the oldest money first. However, this would not deplete that account. So, this is effectively unallocated money at this point. It does not have an impact on other operations.
This would not affect the North Lake property.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
This would not affect the North Lake property?
No,
The money for that?
no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, or is there a motion to approve staff to apply for the grant?
I'd happy to make the motion if I can know the correct motion to make this time.
Did you raise your hand, Deputy Mayor Honda?
I do. I have one more question. Are the sellers willing sellers?
Yes, that last that we know they are.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Walsh, would you like to make a motion?
I think I have it right. I move to forward option 1 to the February 15th, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
And do we have a second? Okay, we've had a motion moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to talk, item D is the 2022 Asphalt Overlay Project Approval Award. And I guess we can't put the D and E together, can we? Or do we need to do each one individually?
No, 2 separate items.
Okay, we'll start with item D.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay. Good evening, council members, chair, and committee members. I'm here today to present to you the 2022 Asphalt Overlay Project Bid Award. The policy question I have for you this evening is, should the council award the 2022 Asphalt Overlay Project to the lowest responsible bidder? This year, that happened to be Icon Materials. A little bit of background information on our annual overlay project. Pavements are biannually inspected and rated on a pavement condition index from 0 to 100. In 2019, citywide, our PCI, the pavement condition index, was about 75. Pavement ratings and geographic equity utilized to develop annual pavement overlay programs to rehabilitate, rebuild, and preserve pavement. Program increased in 2020 to include residential paving program funded by the solid waste utility tax. As you've seen on the first screen, we're pretty spread this year all over the city, which is a good thing. But I wanted to give you individual maps of what we call the schedules. Schedules are each individual section of road that we'll be overlaying or repairing. First is Schedule A, down 373rd from Pack all the way up to 12th. That's the first one. Second one is 16th Avenue, runs along the high school. Third, Schedule C is South 336th, just about to Pack Highway, all the way down to Weyerhaeuser Roundabout underneath I-5. Fourth is our first, the last three are all residential sections. This is down at the southwest corner of town, residential area. Then we're up north end of town, north of 288th on 20th Avenue South, running up to 22nd Avenue South. And lastly is just northwest of Mirror Lake by Lake Grove Park. There's been a couple of roads chosen in there that are in very poor condition. So background information on this bid. 4 bids were received this year and opened on January 28th of 2022 for the 22 Asphalt Overlay Project. The lowest responsible bidder was Icon Materials with a bid of $3,212,301.95. The other 4 bids are listed there, largest of which was $3.45 million. Available funding for this project is about $4 million. It's comprised of the following. The motor vehicle fuel tax, Fund 102 for $400,000, real estate excise tax for $1 million, and that solid waste utility tax, as we were discussing earlier, for $2.6 million, for a total funding budget of $4 million. Estimated construction cost is the low bid from Icon of about $3.2 million. We estimate a 10% construction contingency, which would be $321,000. Construction engineering of $350,000 for a total estimated program cost of $3,883,531.95. Options considered before you tonight is option number 1, award all schedules of the 2022 Asphalt Overlay Project to Icon Materials, the lowest responsible bidder, in the amount of $3,212,301.95, and approve the contingency of $321,230 for a total of $3,533,531.95, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Option number 2, reject all bids for the 2022 Asphalt Overlay Project and direct staff to rebid the project and return to committee for further. Mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1 to the February 15th, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. And as always, I am available for questions.
Yeah, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
This is Jack here. We always have a 10% contingency fund on these bids. Does that 10% always get spent, or is that just, we have it there in case we need it? It always has been, always been a mystery to me. We get a bid and then we always tack 10% onto it.
Sure.
And I never really knew in the past where that money went.
Right, right. It's a great question. About 2 months ago, I believe, November, we skipped December, I presented for project acceptance of the 2020 asphalt overlay program, and we came in several $100,000 below estimate. I plan to present, I'm with you for 5 projects this evening, so settle in.
Okay.
I'm John
You can
Cole,
be really
capital
good.
engineer. I'm John Cole, capital engineer. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. But, so yeah, it's a fluff, and construction is what construction is.
So
And
you just, we roll, what you save, we roll over to the next project?
absolutely, yeah. We always try to save it, you know. It's that much more that we get to spend on the next project or somewhere else in the city that needs it, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking, if I can say, looking at the packet, wasn't there one thing on the agenda tonight that actually is using some of those contingencies funds where some of the stuff went over?
It's mine. I ran over by 20,000, so later on, I'm gonna ask you for that, for a little bit more than 10%, actually. I should have probably, you know, put 12% in that year, so.
Shame on you.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay, any other questions of any council members before we ask one of the members to make a motion to move to the, yes, Deputy Mayor Honda and then Councilmember Dawson.
Thank you. A discussion on how neighborhood streets were chosen to be repaved came up at an HOA meeting I attended recently in my neighborhood. And my neighborhood last year had some of our cul-de-sacs repaved that the HOA put the money into the city to have those repaved. And in the meantime, we had, I don't know what you'd call it, but the cracks in the streets were filled in with oil or a substance that is really sticky.
Yes.
Seal coat.
Some of those are already, well, they failed. They broke open, you know, even before much time had passed. And the question was, how bad do neighborhood streets have to get before they're chosen to be repaved? And is there an average age of a neighborhood street before it's repaved?
Right, that's a great question. Approximately 20 years. 20 years is what we shoot for life of roads. That doesn't always work. We project that they have a 20-year life. Schedule E this year, the road rating, the PCI rating, was, I believe, at a 23. At that point, it's so low that it's not repairable. We're actually going to have to excavate all the way down to subgrade and rebuild that entire road. And it wasn't until the solid waste tax came to be that we even were able to consider residential roads. We were really primarily focused on arterials. And so this is a great opportunity to get into those residential roads that really, really need help. Once the PCI rating, obviously we choose the worst. And so whoever's the worst gets put on the list first. So I can't give you a number that when it hits that we'll pave it, because it's all based on budget and who's worse than that one.
So in the city of Federal Way, let's say in the last 25 years, how many residential neighborhood roads have been repaved? Do we know?
I'm going to offer EJ this question.
Deputy Mayor, last year was the first year we paved residential streets since 2008, when the funding levels were cut. So from 2008 to 2021, the answer is 0.
And how does this compare to other cities? Do we know?
We do. It's a really long answer, that each city views this a little bit differently. So the city of Kent went out and, after 2 attempts, they actually passed a roads and streets levy that funds their system. They also have a solid waste utility tax similar to us. So they currently are putting substantially more money per mile into the street system than we are, as is the city of Auburn. But just for those two, they're higher. But when you look at some other cities, they're substantially lower.
Tacoma.
So yeah, Tacoma is one that is lower than us. So it's a little bit all over the board. The overall goal for most cities is to maintain a PCI somewhere between 75 and 80, typically. Ours is below that, but that's kind of what we're striving for. But we know we need to get back into the residential streets. As John mentioned, we're targeting streets that are in the 23 to 30 right now. Ideally, we should be overlaying them more when they're like 50 to 60. So we have literally a long road ahead of us to be able to get to the point where we're caught back up. It'll be many, many years.
So are we bringing in more money through this additional tax than we anticipated?
So that'll be part of the budget conversation in the fall. We don't have a full run of data on that yet. From first blush, it looks like we're bringing in a little bit more, but not outside of what a day projected us to bring in. So last year, just the way the schedules work, this year is a little bit larger just because with the way the tax started in its infancy. And last year being the first year, we had a slightly smaller program than the revenue we were projected to bring in. So we carried that revenue forward to allow us to do a larger program this year.
Okay, thank you.
Should I go
Yes.
ahead?
Yes, go ahead, sorry. You're next.
All right,
Go ahead.
thank you. So back to the agenda item. You did say the request was for $3,533,531.95.
Correct.
But with the additional construction management, the 10%, there's a total construction cost. So are we looking for the total construction cost or for the estimated total construction cost?
The
If that makes
total,
sense.
total construction costs, including the contingency and engineering.
Okay. So for it says in the narrative, it says for a total of 3,533. So it's not listing the total of 3,883 in the narrative, not the chart.
Let me back to it. Make sure here. Share screen. Share that. And
I'm looking at the attachment.
Councilmember, I think I can answer that while John's pulling it
Yeah.
up. So the item before you tonight is to award the ICON contract and the contingency. But in full transparency, we show you what the total program cost is and the total program funding. But the agenda item is specific to awarding the ICON contract. So there's other expenditures associated with this project or this program that are not included in there. So that 3.5 number in the motion is correct, but the total program cost is 3.8, both of which are under the 4 million.
So in the future, or when we're discussing this, it's not going to affect anything?
No.
That we're not including the construction management,
No,
the 10%?
that's budgeted
Okay.
separately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, council members and committee members, any other questions? Ron, would you be willing to enter in a motion?
I
It's a-
move,
with a-
oh,
Oh, go ahead, Jack.
oh, you can, with doing it virtually, it's hard to tell who's doing what, so anyway. But I move that that
Oh, go ahead.
let's see here, that we forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Now we'll move to our next presentation, the 2021 Asphalt Overlay Project, which will probably have a lot of the same information, but just in the past.
Almost copy and paste, yes, sir. Get this shared for you. Okay, on to the next one. This is the one we discussed earlier, 2021 Asphalt Overlay Project, authorization to increase contract expenditures. Policy question I have for you this evening is, should the council approve an increase in the contract expenditures for the 2021 Asphalt Overlay Project? A little bit of background information, copy and paste, right? We develop a PCI, 0 to 100, citywide's about 75. This program was approved last year, and this was, as EJ said, first year for the solid waste, where we were able to get into some neighborhoods. The contractor, Tucci & Sons, last year was awarded the contract in the amount of $1,643,093.70 per city council consent agenda dated February 16th, 2021. Total construction contract cost was about $1.6 million. $1,663,093.70. This was over by about $20,000, but still within the available funding. Available funding was, as you see, motor vehicle fuel tax, Fund 102 for $450,000. The real estate excise tax was $800,000, and the solid waste utility tax, the first year in its infancy, partial year was $1.1 million. Brought our total funding available for that project to $2,350,000. So the options in front of you this evening is authorize staff to increase the contract expenditures for the 2021 overlay project by $20,000 for a total authorized amount of $1,663,093.70. Or option 2, do not authorize staff to increase contract expenditures and provide direction to staff. Mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the February 15th, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. And I am more than willing to answer any questions anyone has.
I guess I'll ask my same question. This is Jack Covey. Did we exceed the contingency? Is that why it's 20,000?
We did, unfortunately, and I will take complete blame on this one.
No blame.
I estimated, we got into these residential neighborhoods, and when we removed the pavement up to the edge, really nice manicured lawns came right to the edge of pavement, and I thought that we could grind the pavement and not disturb a lot of the grass and landscaping and such. So we had roadside restoration as the line item that we paid on it. It blew the budget. And so we made a lot of people happy. We put it back the way it should be. And they were happy about it, but it did cost us a little extra to do.
Okay. Good explanation. Any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Tron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to mention that usually staff did a really good job of coming under the budget. So this is a little bit odd, but I just want to mention that they usually do a really, really good job. So thank you.
So is there any other questions, or do we have a motion to Move it.
Mr. Chair, I can make the motion.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you. I move to forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. We'll now move to something probably all dear to our lives, storm drain repair, right?
Sure, tonight's topic,
Water.
yeah, how to get rid of it. Okay, and this one is 2022 storm. Okay, thirdly, third project I have for you this evening is our storm, typically annually, storm repair phase 4 authorization to bid. Policy question I have for you this evening is, should the council approve the storm repair phase 4 project and authorize staff to proceed with the design and bid of proposed storm repair phase 4 project? A little bit of background, storm pipe in the city is inspected via closed circuit television, CCTV, to identify deficiencies. Deficiencies include offset pipe joints, broken, rusted, or deformed pipes. Risks include storm drain blockage and road and or sidewalk collapse. The fix for this type of thing is typically pipe replacement, or in some cases, we can rehabilitate it. This is a picture from 2 years ago, one of the storm pipes that we had repaired. The project will remove, this year, will remove and replace approximately 460 linear feet of damaged and or deteriorating storm pipes in approximately 20 different locations. I put this map on here for you, and it's really just for high level. Just so you can see, we are spreading it around a bit. We were more just north end of the city with these repairs. Our CCTV contract came in. Our swim department was able to review them real quick, and we were able to get some pipes that actually were much worse than we had on the initial list replaced down in the south and southwest end of town. I don't have individual maps on each one of these. It might take all night. The available funding this evening is from the Surface Water Management Fund 304. We have $317,000 available in that fund, and that's all the funding we have available at this time for this project. Interesting part. The estimated expenditures on this project, design for engineering, $38,500. Construction cost, estimating about $365,000. The contingency, $36,500, and then construction management to follow the project once it's started, $38,500 for $478,500. Continuation on the program cost, we have it estimated about $478,000 is the preliminary figure, and that's for estimating purposes only. This phase 4 of this project will be awarded within the available program budget. Our estimated advertising date is midsummer for construction, so May for advertising, and start of construction in July. Options considered this evening. Option number 1, approve the list of locations for the storm repair phase 4 as presented and authorize staff to bid the storm repair phase 4, returning for authorization to award the project within the available budget to the lowest responsible bidder. Or option 2, direct staff to modify the preliminary list and return to committee for further action. Mayor's recommendation is forwarding option 1 to the February 15th, 2022 council consent agenda for approval. As always, I'm here for questions.
Council?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I
Councilman.
have a question. You say that the capital project fund is available as 317,000, but the total project costs 478,500. So what you're saying is that we will only complete as much of the project as what that 317,000 provides, or are we taking the difference from the general fund, or how do we
No, at this point,
reconcile that difference?
at this point, it'll be fit into the available funding.
So some of those particular projects may not be completed.
Some of them
then?
will have to be dropped, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And you have them prioritized, I
Prioritized.
assume?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then this program then carries on the next year with whatever funding comes on and pick up the ones that you dropped this year? Or what, it's a list?
There's one on Redondo that got dropped 2 years ago that we'll be doing this year, so yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from any other council member? And we have a motion to instruct staff.
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Now we have, what's the next one? Storm repair phase 3,
Yep.
acceptance. So this is one we got done.
This is one that we got done, you got it. It's all done, and I'm here today for project acceptance. Okay, so this one is for the 2020 storm repair phase 3 project acceptance. Policy question I have for you this evening. Should the council accept the 2020 storm repair phase 3 constructed by Assorted Endeavors LLC as complete? Project overview, same as the last one. We identify issues in the city with our CCTV contract. Deficiencies range from complete collapsed pipes, rusted stuff that we inherited from King County. And the risks include drainage, flooding, and undermining of roadways and sidewalks causing collapse. Fix is pipe replacement or rehabilitation. This was the map of the schedules last in 2020 that were completed. This is a good kind of before, during, and after. This was a corrugated metal pipe about 3 foot in diameter, really shallow, and as you can see at the top of the first photo, had just about completely collapsed. So it was dug out, removed, and then replaced with new material. Project acceptance. Prior to the release of retainage on Public Works construction project, excuse me, the City Council must accept the work as complete to meet State Department of Revenue and State Department of Labor and Industry requirements. The 2020 storm repair phase 3 was constructed by Assorted Endeavors and is complete. The final construction contract amount is $102,976.32. This is $47,023.68 below the $150,000, including contingency, budget that was approved by City Council on July 21st, 2020. Project is funded by the approved Fund 304 budget. Options considered tonight is, I don't have them numbered. Option number 1, authorize final acceptance of the 2020 storm repair phase 3 as constructed by Assorted Endeavors LLC in the amount of $102,976.32. Or option 2, do not authorize acceptance of the 2020 storm repair phase 3 as constructed and provide direction to staff. Mayor's recommendation is forwarding option 1 to the February 15th, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. And I have Any questions?
I
That,
have a different question file. Any questions for anyone?
yeah, that 47,000 under budget, is that money included in what was available for that last one that we just approved?
EJ, no, that did not get rolled over into this year's. It was part of the swim budget and was,
So procedurally, that money will go back into the unallocated within, all of this money is in the surface water utility operations funds, which is what 304 is. So it's all restricted money, but procedurally, that money will slide back into an unallocated budget, whatever you want to call it. And then when we come back with the other project, assuming there's favorable numbers, at that time, council could, in theory, move money out of the unallocated budget and put it into that project if there was a desire to do so. But procedurally, we can't just take this money and apply it to another project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And we have a motion to move forward.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Tran, would you like to move this forward to the consent
Sure.
agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
So second.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, item H, fiber loop project.
okay. So we can hold your attention. We did paving, we did storm. Now we have some fiber optic. So I'm here today to present the fiber loop project. This is a 30% design report, so very early on. Policy question I have for you this evening. Should the City Council authorize staff to continue to design the fiber loop project and return to LUTC and Council for bid authorization and further reports? Financial impacts of this project. Approved capital transportation budget 306 for project 239, which is this fiber optic loop project. This project is funded by sound transit mitigation fees and future costs associated with operations and maintenance are covered by the information technology budget, the IT budget. A little bit of background information on this project. Completion of a fiber optic loop by providing a redundant north-south fiber cable generally along Military Road between South 317th and South 272nd city limits, northern city limits. This will tie into the city's existing fiber spine along Pacific Highway. It is included as part of Sound Transit's Federal Way Link Extension Development Agreement. A little bit of background on how this money came to be was due to concerns in Sound Transit's access to cities right-of-way and the need for this fiber optic cable. The city opted to accept mitigation funding in lieu of them doing it to construct this fiber loop. This is a map as discussed down by the new transit center, up the east side, just to the west of I-5, along Military, will run over to Pack and then continue up and out Star Lake to city limits along 272nd, and then slightly south on Pacific Highway just to join up to the existing system that we have running on Pacific Highway and is required for redundancy and such. Progress to date. Project design is sitting at about 30%. Ongoing tasks. We will be working on the contract specifications, furthering the design to 85%, and currently looking at hiring a contractor to proof existing available conduit running up Military that's already there, so we don't have to put in conduit as well, using existing infrastructure. Estimated expenditures, design work is about $200,000. Construction cost is going to be close to $2 million. The 10% construction contingency is $200,000, and construction management is another $200,000. So estimated total project cost is about $2.6 million. Available funding just so happens to be exactly the same, $2.6 million, and that is through the Sound Transit mitigation fees that were collected. Options considered this evening. Option number 1, authorize staff to proceed with the design of the fiber loop project and return to LUTC and council for bid authorization and further reports. Or option 2, do not authorize staff to proceed with the design of the fiber loop project and provide direction to staff. Mayor's recommendation is option number 1, forwarding that to the February 15th, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. And I'm available for any questions.
Council, any questions?
If there's no others, I am, a complete novice when it comes to understanding this. So is this fiber optic that is going to be used to provide things for city facilities, or what?
Yeah. City facilities are cameras are run through this fiber, so Safe City cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Part of this project, we're looking at adding another one at 272nd and Pack at the northern city limits, and run primarily by IT for a lot of IT stuff. I'll let EJ.
Yeah, so it's a city-operated system. It's building on the existing network. As part of the development agreement, Sound Transit was required to construct it in their guideway going north-south. They approached us about effectively buying out that requirement and us building it within city right-of-way. So we negotiated with them and came to this price. In addition to the city cameras, it also allows the interconnect of all the traffic signals. We use it for streetlights. We use it, all the city facilities are connected to it. It's how the city operates on the back end.
Okay. And so a lot of it, there's conduit that's being laid, and I mean, will that conduit be able to be used by, I mean, is it something that will be able to help, with having that conduit there? Is it something that can help other businesses or whatever within the city, besides just the city itself, or is that not?
So sort of, and that this kind of gets into Director Fitchner's world a little bit. So we do lease some of our conduit infrastructure to specific fiber optics companies. We do not, as a city, have anything that's point-to-point at the end, so we're not interfacing directly with businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But they, some of the local providers are using conduit capacity where we have extra. Some of our conduit, based on the way it was, the funding that was used to install it, we are not allowed to have secondary users in the conduit. For this one, we would be,
Okay.
just with the way it's funding. So that's, I don't know if that answers your question. It's
That answers it well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I now know slightly more than I did before.
We've become a wired city, right? Any other questions that someone has before we move forward? Councilmember Walsh, could you make a motion?
I move to forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Thank you very much for
Thank you all.
spending half of your evening with us. We'll now move to item I, 2021 pavement repair project, final acceptance. This might be interesting for Council Deputy Mayor Honda to see.
All right, good evening, Chair Dovey, committee members, council members. My name is Jeff Hahn. I'm the capital engineer for the city of Federal Way, and I'm presenting the 2021 pavement repair project final acceptance to committee. The policy question is, so the city council accept the 2021 pavement repair project constructed by Mars Resources as complete. Some background information. Prior to release of retainage on a public works construction project, the city council must accept the work as complete to meet state Department of Revenue and State Department of Labor and Industries requirements. The financial impact. This is the acceptance of the construction project as complete. Therefore, no additional funds are proposed to be spent as part of this agenda item. The 2021 pavement repair project constructed with My Resources as complete. The final construction contract amount is $286,650.65. This is $27,000 below the $313,000 budget that was approved by the City Council on July 20th, 2021. The options before committees are: 1, authorize acceptance of the 2021 pavement repair project constructed by My Resources in the amount of $286,650.65 as complete. 2, do not authorize acceptance of the 2021 pavement repair project constructed by My Resources as complete and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the February 15, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. Staff is available for any questions you may have.
Council, are there any questions? I just have one question. Was this the project where we seal coated different roads through the neighborhoods that Deputy Mayor Honda was talking about earlier?
This is it's part of the overlay. This is like a temporary fix prior to the overlay. We rating our streets, I mean, for the needs for a temporary fix, which is like potholes before it go into construction. We go around the city and then analyzing our streets and then do a temporary fix before the final construction.
Okay. Any other questions for any council member? Councilman Tran, would you like to make a motion, please?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, now we have the next one, the 2020-21 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program contract increase.
Chair Dovey, committee members, council members, at this time, I would like to present the 2020 to 2021 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program contract increase to committee. The policy questions is, so the city council approved to increase amount for the 2020 to 2021 NTS program to Pac West Paving, DBA Tony Lin Paving. The financial impact. The project costs are tracked under Capital Project 212 within the 306 fund. This project is funded $60,000 annually from the 101 Fund Street Operations budget. Funding requirements for the operations and maintenance of infrastructure is reviewed and adjusted as required during the budget process. Some background information. Pac West Paving, DBA Tony Lin Paving, was selected through a competitive bid process and awarded the 2020 to 2021 NTS program on February 10, 2020. Pac West Paving has been the successful bidder over the last 6 competitions and has been providing high quality products. Auxiliary service and reliability to the City of Federal Way since 2009. The Public Works proposed to increase the current contract amount by $60,000 to a total of $120,000 and adjust contract bid unit price by 5.9% based on the Puget Sound Consumer Index in July 2021. The contract will be rebid in the fall of 2022 to align with the next biennium budget. The project budget for 2020 to 2021 of $60,000. 2022 budget another $60,000. The amended balance of $120,000. The options before committees are: 1, authorize approval to increase amount for the 2020 to 2021 NTS program to Pac West Paving, DBA Tony Lin Paving, in the amount of $60,000 to a new not to exceed amount of $120,000. Or 2, do not authorize approval to increase amount for the 2020 to 2021 NTS program and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the February 15, 2022 CD Council consent agenda for approval. And staff is available for any questions you may have.
I have one question, if I could. We're in 2022 right now, and we're talking about 2020 to 2021. Is that just, there a gap there of missing, or what don't I understand? Is this, we had them do more work in 2021?
The previous contract was for 2020 and 2021, and it's the same contract that has been winning, I think, 6 consecutive times. And so we, moving forward to 2022, rather going out to bid on 2022, we're using the same contractor and just amending $60,000 to award to the contractor to perform a works for the City of Federal Way.
To be used in 2022 then?
Correct.
Okay, I understand. Yes, Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. So then will this allow more work to be done? More neighborhoods could apply for funding?
This is for, I think for 2022, we have 1 traffic circle and maybe 3 to 4 speed humps. And I think Rick will address this comments.
Yes, as Jeff stated, we do have already in the queue a traffic circle going in front of Sahali Middle School at 19th Southwest and 340th. And we have 3 other proposals for traffic calming in queued up to evaluate. Actually, you may be seeing one next month that would probably have to be a multi-year because of its scope. We do limit in the NTS program a given neighborhood to $15,000 per year, but they are asking for 5 speed humps and a traffic circle, and so that would be about 3 years worth under that scenario. And then there's a couple other proposals that are still being worked on, so not quite sure what they will entail in the end. So yeah, there's plenty of work out there for us.
So this will allow us to do more of the requests that we're getting in,
Yes, that is the intent.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilmember Walsh, would you like to make a motion?
I move to forward option 1 to the February 15, 2022 council consent agenda for approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
Aye.
We'll now move to the Washington State Department of Transportation Operations and Maintenance Agreement for Adaptive Traffic Control Systems. Mr. Perez.
Yeah, let me just find out where that thing went. There it is. And load that up. And then oops. There we go. One of these days I'll get this stuff down. So, yeah, here tonight to present an operations and maintenance agreement with WashDOT in support of an adaptive traffic control system. This is the culmination of about 3 years of negotiating with WashDOT, and that's mostly because they're slow to respond. Should the City Council approve the proposed interagency agreement with WashDOT, as part of the Adaptive Traffic Control System project. So, financial impacts, we have 3 different phases that are currently funded through a variety of grant sources, and the city match for that is $875,000 in real estate excise tax and traffic impact fees. Annual operating costs associated with this agreement will be about $20,000 per year, which is already included in the traffic maintenance operating budget. So, a little bit of background on the evolution of traffic signal coordination. So, first we had pre-timed traffic signals that would just operate with the same phase lengths and the same cycle lengths all the time. And that's what you typically see in large urban cities, downtown Seattle, downtown Tacoma. So in order to coordinate signals, all the signals had to be on a common cycle length, which is how long it takes to go through all the phases at any given intersection. So then in the early 60s, actually, actuated traffic signals were created, which by adding detection could terminate a phase early if there was no traffic left. And there was no fixed cycle length, so there was no coordination that way. So then, in order to provide coordination, we went to semi-actuated, which is where you have a set cycle length for a different particular system, and you're identifying what the maximum green times are for each phase. And any unused green time goes back to the coordinated phase, which is usually the street with the most traffic. So what an adaptive system does is, rather than having these predetermined phase lengths, that they would go continually tweak that in order to optimize that timing using the information from the signal detection. So the idea is to maintain coordination on a system-wide basis and minimize unused green time to keep traffic moving. Now, adaptive is not a cure-all. If an intersection is over capacity, it's not going to make traffic go away, but it will help delay the onset of gridlock and clear it out faster when volumes start dropping again. And so this is the next step in the evolution of the city. And I'm really excited about this project getting off the ground because I started here 25 years ago and said, boy, this town needs adaptive. So I'm really excited about this. So this is location of the three phases. Phase 1 was basically the city center area and 320th corridor. And phase 2 was the south part of 99, 348th and Enchanted Parkway. And then phase 3 was the north part of the city. Eventually phases 4 and 5 will cover as far west as 21st Avenue Southwest. So, and you may note on this map that some of the signals are not owned by the city. In particular, in this case, the Washington State Department of Transportation controls, per state law, the traffic signals at freeway off-ramps. And in addition, the one at Enchanted Parkway and Milton Road is outside city limits. Similarly, we have 3 traffic signals that are in unincorporated King County, so they would own those. And eventually you'll be seeing an agreement with King County for operating those 3 signals. But for the time being, we're talking in this agreement, those 5 traffic signals currently owned and operated by WashDOT. So what this agreement does is commits the city to operate and maintain those signals and the street lights at those intersections. We would be required to follow WashDOT standards for certain signal timing parameters. They are similar to the city and not particularly inconsistent with us. We also have to agree to minimize the queues at the freeway off-ramps to avoid backing traffic up onto the freeway main line, and also minimize those queues from the ramp meters onto city streets. They're requesting a maintenance interval that's more restrictive than what the city currently contracts from King County, every 2 months instead of 3, but the scope of that 2-month interval maintenance check is less than what we would do at every 3. So it should even out. And then we also have to coordinate our work activities with them at quarterly meetings. The agreement would renew automatically every year. So options considered is number 1, to approve the proposed agreement, or 2, do not approve the proposed agreement and provide direction to staff. The mayor's recommendation is option 1. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? I see no hands, so everybody's probably excited about having this new improvement. Would I have a motion to move it forward to the consent agenda?
Chair Dovey, I move to forward the proposed agreement to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Now we'll move to transportation grants and funding applications. Mr. Perez is working for more money, right? Get us more roads.
Well, we are certainly hoping that we will be able to, here, let's get this up, be able to deliver more projects, yes. So
More projects, yes.
So yes, let's see, there we go. So the policy question is, should the council authorize staff to submit a grant application for transportation safety projects? So WashDOT issued a call for projects for federally funding of Highway Safety Improvement Program. That submittal requires preparation of a local road safety plan that documents our safety needs. And although we've yet to finalize that document, 2 projects that are coming up appear to be competitive for funding, and there may be others. But number 1 on our list is the proposed roundabout and access management project at Highway 99 and South 373rd that is intended to address the rather horrendous collision experience we've been having there. And then also looking at problematic curve alignment where a lot of runoff the road collisions occur is to provide high friction surface treatments for those curves. So the Highway 99 at 373rd project, this is a early conceptual map showing what the project would do. It's a fairly large 2-lane roundabout and would actually provide areas for U-turns at each end of the project, as well as a median barrier for the length of the project to prevent those crossover collisions. And so the other one, this is from the last time we submitted this proposal to WashDOT. The actual locations may change, but the concept is to address areas where we're having problems with cars running off the road and hitting stuff and people getting hurt from it. So, so the high friction surface treatments, again, those locations are yet to be determined, but we're just going to say, okay, we can come up with 200,000 and ask for a grant of 100 or 1 million to be able to provide those treatments. Secondly, the roundabout project, we already have 2.5 million from the Transportation Improvement Board for this project. And so we're looking for an additional 1 million that would basically eliminate the need to have any city contribution. It would be federal matching the state. And then the funds that we have there would be available for contingency. And we also, looks like we're going to have we've executed an agreement to have a development in Milton provide some mitigation towards this project to the tune of $325,000. So options considered is 1, to authorize staff to submit the proposed grant applications, or 2, do not authorize staff to do so and provide direction. And of course, the mayor's recommendation is option 1, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Council, is there any questions for Mr. Perez?
Yeah, quick question, that high friction surface treatment, is that like a rumble strip or what's meant by that?
So it's actually a combination of a epoxy type treatment with a whole lot of very fine grained sand in it, of very durable rock. We have yet to do one. The county has several locations. I think the closest of which is probably on Lake Holm Road, and if you're familiar with that area east of Auburn. But they have had some success with reducing those run-off the road collisions at those locations that they've installed that, and actually the Federal Highway Administration was advocating that more agencies should use this treatment. So thought we did.
So that it's the car,
It increases the friction so that the tires aren't as likely to slip even under, wet conditions.
Okay, so it's more for in wet conditions then, rather than...
Or people that are just driving too darn fast through the curve.
Uh-huh. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Perez? Do we have a motion to authorize the city to apply for the grants? Yes.
I move to forward the proposed authorization for grant application submittals to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
Second's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. We'll now do item M,
Thank you.
Contract increase for concrete beveling services, trip hazard removal contract.
And good evening. I am Desiree Winkler, Deputy Public Works Director. I'm gonna find my contract. Here we go. The policy question is, should City Council authorize an increase of the contract amount of Precision Concrete Services Incorporated's concrete beveling services, trip hazard removal contract? So some background information. So sidewalk maintenance includes trip hazard removal, and I have a good picture of it on my next slide. We have done an evaluation of all of our arterial sidewalks, and we found that we have over $400,000 worth of beveling work needed on the sidewalks to remove trip hazards. We do some of this work in-house. We just don't have enough resources to get it done in a timely manner. Precision Concrete Cutting Incorporated was awarded a small works contract in May of 2021 as the lowest responsible bidder. So the trip hazards, many times, they're at the joints. A lot of times they're caused by adjacent tree roots that uplift one of the panels from the other. A good way to remove this trip hazard is to bevel or grind the higher of the two panels and remove the trip hazard. And we can do this as long as that offset is 2 inches or less. If it gets much more than that, then we just need to remove the panel and replace it. So under the current contract, work to date last year, we've completed Southwest Campus, or South 348th between 7th Avenue Southwest and Enchanted Parkway. We also completed beveling on Pacific Highway from South 356 to South 312. We removed over 390 trip hazards for around $100,000. The next location that we've already had inspected is on Southwest and South 320th between 21st Avenue Southwest and 25th Avenue South. There's about 620 locations that will cost about $84,000 to remove. The budget is from the Streets 101 Maintenance Fund that is funded both by motor vehicle excise tax and the general fund. So we propose to increase the contract by $150,000 to a new not to exceed amount of $250,000. Options considered: approve the proposed increase of Precision Concrete Service Incorporated's concrete beveling services trip hazard removal contract and the amount of $150,000 to a total contract of amount of $250,000, or 2, do not approve the proposed contract increase and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends option 1, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council?
I have one question. I think I probably know the answer to it, but from my observation, some of the worst trip hazards in the city are not necessarily on the sidewalks adjacent to roads, but in some of the paths that I think would probably fall under the Parks Department. For example, the Alderbrook path. I mean, where there's huge trip hazards, and it's a paved asphalt path rather than a concrete path. This would not be able to be used for any of those, correct?
This contract was not contemplated to do those. It is something that this is for concrete, so that's one difference. An asphalt path would probably need to be rehabilitated in a different way than what this type of work does.
I suspected that would be your answer, but I wanted to present it.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, is there a motion to move this forward?
Mr. Chair, I move forward the proposed contract increase to the February 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we've made it through the first items of our agenda, which were all for decisions and moving forward to the city council. We'll now have a project update on Sound Transit, and this is for information only.
Good evening, Chair Dovey, committee members and council members. My name is Ryan Medlin. I am the city liaison to Sound Transit, here with the monthly update. So starting with the Federal Way Link extension, which is the project currently under construction.
Hey, Ryan, can you share that on the Zoom?
Embarrassing. All right, apologies for that. Starting again with the Federal Way Link extension, which is the project currently under construction. We had girder deliveries being completed in the city center area over the downtown from about 23rd out to I-5. They will be finishing up hopefully by Wednesday of this week with the stretch from basically 320th out to I-5, with the rest of them happening later this year. There's one more column they have to build on the north side of 320th, and then the remaining columns in the Commons parking lots, which will probably take them through to the summer, so the rest of the girders are coming at that time. They're also starting work in the area of the new parking garage extension near the intersection of 21st and South 316th. They'll first be digging and installing a new detention vault that goes below the old west driveway for the existing parking garage right there. Also, they are continuing work on utilities in partnership with Lake Haven. They are hopefully wrapping up in the near future and then there's some roadway restoration work that needs to occur. The next phase of the South 320th work is a new storm drain line and asphalt overlay once everything is completed. The last few months have also seen a substantial amount of rain, as we may have noticed, so that did slow their work outside of the city center because most of that is freshly cleared with a lot of dirt that was very difficult for them to work in. So their work on the retaining walls along the guideway has slowed, but is continuing nonetheless. And those retaining walls will support the guideway that follows I-5 for most of the length from 272nd to 317th. The operations and maintenance facility, back in December, the Sound Transit Board identified as a preferred alternative, what's known as the South 336th Street site, also known as the Christian Faith Center site. Their Sound Transit staff is currently in the process of updating property owners, primarily in the preferred alternative area, but as well as the other potential sites, and they'll be doing additional public outreach over the course of the next year, leading up to the publication of the final environmental impact statement, which is probably, we're talking towards the end of this year, and that would precede the final site selection by the Sound Transit Board, which could either be them confirming the preferred alternative or picking one of the other 3 candidate sites that were included in the draft environmental impact statement. With the Tacoma Dome Link extension, which is the one that continues from the Commons Mall south to Tacoma Dome, they're currently in the environmental reviews phase. Release of the draft environmental impact statement for public review and comment is expected later this year, but no timeline is known at this time. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Council, any questions?
I have some questions.
Go right ahead, Deputy Mayor Honda, please.
Thank you. I have two questions, Ryan. One, is the strike by the concrete workers having an impact on our project here in Federal Way? And two, the parking lot over in the Commons where the Target store is blocked off for work by Sound Transit. Is that going to be all of the space that they're taking in that area, or are they taking more space in the Commons in that parking lot? How do you know how that will look when it's done?
So to start with your first question, since that's the easier one to answer, the concrete strike, the kind of line of demarcation with the union that's on strike versus the other unions is actually 272nd. So they have been able to get concrete for areas within the city limits, still coming from plants that are, through their various labor contracts, allowed to deliver to this area. Regarding the Commons Mall, the area that they fenced off in the area of the old Red Robin and Azteca, those are the areas of improvements. The area that they just fenced off will be where they're putting in the new columns. Right now they're doing utility relocations where they have to drill for the columns, and then probably around the next month you'll see the drillers show up to put in the shafts for the eventual columns to follow in April, May, and then so forth from there. So when they're done with construction, and that area will eventually be opened up and restored pursuant to the agreement that they have with the Commons Mall, but my understanding is much of it will be put back as a parking lot, with the only difference being a guideway and an emergency stairwell located within it. And then the section where there's the old Red Robin and Azteca, that footprint will become a permanent improvement for Sound Transit for their, right now it's going to be the end-of-line facility. And then once the Tacoma Dome link extension is completed, it would no longer need to be an end-of-line facility, essentially an office that they have, because we're the last light rail station. And at that point, I believe they intend for it to become a shared security office at this time.
So then the area in the parking lot, not where the Red Robin was and not where the Azteca was, that they have fenced off, is where they're going to put where the train will stop, and then people will be able to park under there. Is that correct?
When the work is completed, yes.
And that would be completed sometime next. They
Right.
start in May.
I don't know if the plan is to open that up when the physical construction is complete, or whether they'll need to keep it fenced off while they're doing finishing touches, for lack of a better way of putting it, up until revenue service starts, which right now revenue service is planned for December of 2024.
Okay. And do you know if they'll be taking any more of the parking lot, or if that's all that they're taking?
I'm sure they'll take some on, an intermittent basis, because when you have,
Okay.
equipment moving in and out, if they're the only other I'm trying to picture the fenced off area in my head. The only other area that I'm kind of questioning whether they'll fence a little bit more when they're drilling a shaft is kind of up near the old Red Robin site and a little to the west, but I would assume they would have fenced that off already if that didn't capture the column that they need to put
Okay.
up there. So I expect that
Okay.
90%.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from any other council members? I'm sure if there's not, I want to thank you for the presentation. I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions coming up as we progress.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your time. Now we'll talk, the last thing on our agenda is item O, airport noise and issue update. Bill?
Chair, Chair Dovey, Council President, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's always nice to be the cleanup hitter, right?
That's right. Good morning. Is there a motion to extend the meeting past 10 o'clock?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes,
There
we
go.
can.
Okay, this is part of two briefings that you're going to receive. You'll receive the second briefing in March once we know more about what is happening with what's going on with the airport. It's a pleasure to have on the line with me community volunteers Dave Berger and Chris Hall, who are authors on this study that you see in front of you, and they're also very, very much involved in a lot of groups and committees that meet on airport issues. And so what we're going to do briefly today, you've got the long 3-page report. I'll send you the slides, is give you an overview, and these two gentlemen are here to answer questions if needed on the task force report, which is sort of like plan of attack on the airport expansion process. And then what we know to date, which is a summary of their expansion plans before they release them. And then at the end for some of you who are in the community but are getting caught up, just an overview of what we are monitoring, and we can share that later depending on time. So first of all, as you know, the Quiet and Healthy Skies Task Force report, that's a preeminent document, and it was with these two gentlemen and other community members, it became the way to look at health issues, noise issues for the upcoming master planning process. And the major focus is the airport's huge increase in flights. This is, been enabled by the controversial third runway that you all remember that opened in 2008. And as you go through the report over the next month, you'll see the chapter there, chapter 3 and chapter 5, really just focus on what we need to do to advocate for our community and the impacts that are there. Of note, and this is for you folks at home too, takeoff and landings that SDA, as they call it now, look at that increase, 317,000 to 412 in 2016, 30% jump, and the projections, in 2013, actually 50 million in 2018. It's really going to exacerbate the impact on our residents, noise, particulates, and it's all in the report. So basically the findings is since the third runway, it's been unmitigated despite a 6-fold increase in traffic. We don't want that to happen again with this proposed expansion. And we're also concerned about when these reports come out, that we all be very cognizant of the fact that the data could be skewed. And so we're going to make sure we have the right data. Also, as is in the report, the health impacts, noise and emissions remain major concerns. We had the UW study on the way, which we have funded in 2 iterations along with the legislature. And one very important piece, because people say, well, what are you going to do about this, is thanks to our House and Senate partners, including most notably Mike Pelliciotti, the legislature took the first step in expanding the mitigation from 1 to 3 miles from the airport to 3 to 6 miles, which could be important, and we can maybe leverage that as we're trying to figure out what to do about this expansion and the steps that what has basically affected our community since the third runway and then once with this expansion. So, and then of course, when you study over the next month, chapter 5 will have the highlights on aircraft pollution, and 6 will also talk about other issues and the increase. And we'll also have a copy for you of the latest UW study, which on particulates that looked at our schools, what could be done in our schools, what can be done in our businesses, and we will have that information as well too. So basically, this is what we're looking at, and we've got to figure out a way to mitigate. I hate the word mitigate, but basically what can we do to help our residents with not only the increases that we've endured, but the increases that are to come. So here are the projects that are going to be spelled out. Basically, the Sustainable Airport Master Plan, they're going to have 19 additional gates. a new passenger terminal, high-speed taxiway turnoffs, added cargo facilities, and we know what the cargo has done during the pandemic and to our night and day flights. And then 30 other projects, which are at the end of your report, that will also help, but also, make the airport, much busier. So what we're looking at next is, and what we're getting the timeline on this, there's going to be the SAMP process, and there's going to be the release first of the National Environmental Policy Act environmental assessment for review. And then after that, there's going to be the release, after that's completed, the State Environmental Policy Act environmental review, which, we will be responding to as a community. And what the port's telling us now, this is as of last week, is they're still continuing to work on it, and they're taking additional time, and we're trying to get a timeline, but it could be as soon as when we get together in March. So we're gonna have you ready. So they're gonna give us additional updates, and once they release this, the port will move forward, but we need to have our oar in the water, as they say. So typically what they do, and this is the timeline part of it, the FAA and the port will give us 30 days notice of the beginning of the process. And we've asked them, the 6 airport cities here to the south, to extend it to 60 days. And what we've learned is they're going to at least expand the public comment process from 30 days to at least 45 days, and we're still asking for 60. And that could happen with the pandemic, with remote, with the challenges for some of in-person. We want to be able to have our citizens, our residents, be available to talk about these things. So where we are next is at the meeting in March. We're going to focus a discussion about the best way to maximize our residents' input. And also we're going to look at the fact that we may need to work with other cities to, and this is in the report, get the technical and legal expertise that we had when we did the report in order to respond to the situation with the SAMP. And one scenario that'll be discussed is to join other airport cities, the plan to work on this so we all team up together, and that a coordinated response is probably best, but we'll discuss it. We'll talk about it. We'll have your information in advance because it's a very complicated process. As you can see, it's going to be hundreds of pages. We'll need the expertise. And if they go with the 30-day notice on the second, the state process, we're going to really have to roll on this. So that's where we're at. And they're going to be very forthcoming soon on when this will be released. We'll have enough notice, all the opportunities for us to comment, not only online, but on person, Zoom, and other ways to do this. But if we are ready in advance, this group, along with the mayor, to talk about things that can be done to lessen the impact, but also, frankly, to work on the impacts that we have endured since, the third runway initiation, that'll be the best approach. So we're getting ahead of this. So if you have any questions, I also have, as I mentioned before, Dave Berger's available, as well as Chris Hall, Marine Hill resident, who've been working on these issues for a long time. So they're available for questions about this process.
Council and members of LUTC, are there questions that you would like to ask right now?
I don't have any questions, but, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I don't have questions, but I always appreciate hearing these about the aircraft issues and the noise and all the mitigations. And I just want to thank Bill and also our representatives. I think they've done a phenomenal job. And I also appreciate it that they have been leading this process, and their expertise have been really incredible. So just wanted to say thank you.
I owe it all to Dave and Chris.
Deputy Mayor Honda, do you have a comment, question?
Yeah, I also wanted to thank Dave and Chris and Bill for keeping this up to date and the work that they're doing. This is really important to our city and to our residents. And I, for one, don't like being awakened at night by aircraft over my head. And we don't get the brunt of it in my neighborhood, but we get enough of it. So thank you very much for all the work you're doing.
Yeah, especially the 345 one that flies over in the summer from the east. It's always a nice wake-up call. Any other questions for Bill or the other gentlemen who've been preparing this for us? Okay, thank you very much. And then you're going to get to us on our next March LUTC. We'll have an update.
Yeah, we're going to be sending you information quicker. In fact, the end of this slide deck, which we don't need to go through, shows all the involvement that we have so far on all the air issues. For instance, Lydia's, was co-chair of the Highline Forum, et cetera, et cetera. But no, we're gonna lay this out. So we're pretty much going to be working. The three of us are going to be meeting weekly in order to try to meet this deadline. So
Great.
But thank you, Chris and Dave, for being there. I don't know if they can see you online there, but.
No, all I can see is aircraft noise and issue update.
Oh, here, let me stop the share and acknowledge them. There they are.
They got to be there somewhere.
Oh, I see names.
Yeah, Bill, they would have to, they can unmute, but they would have to unmute to be able to talk.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate your time and effort, and Chris and Dave for helping bring this to us.
Thank you.
They unmuted, so they might want to say something, Chair.
No, I didn't. This is Chris Hall speaking, but Britt Olick also had, and early on there were a lot of other folks who were really heavily involved in this, and so it's not just Dave. Dave, I, and Bill kind of at the end were there, but anyway, I appreciate it. Appreciate all the support that we're getting from the mayor's office. Everybody, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jack, I would just reiterate what Chris said, and also we've had two neighborhood-wide meetings. I think you probably were at one or both of them. Because of the pandemic, we've kind of temporarily put this in abeyance because the SAMP, the airport expansion plan, was delayed by 2+ years. But now that the airport is getting back to normal, because we're getting back to normal in terms of the level of flights and the amount of impact, we'll ramp back up again with the neighborhood, and probably, and we've discussed this with the mayor, have another neighborhood-wide meeting. We had about 100 people at those two meetings, and we'll be sure to let the council members know as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can speak from experience. The airport is busier than I've ever been in it in the last 3 years. For somebody who's there every week, I can tell you it's really busy.
We appreciate it. We appreciate and need the council's support. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure you have the council's support when the time comes to do more than just say thank you for your report. Okay, we'll move to item 4, other. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up?
I have a question for staff.
Okay, go ahead. I saw your hand raised.
So I don't know who would answer this, Brian Davis or EJ, but I've been listening and watching a lot of the legislative action, and there's been some hearings on the missing middle housing around transit stops. And I was wondering if staff could send, if you know anything, if you could send an update to us, if what possible changes might be happening to that, or and how that could possibly affect Federal Way.
Sure. So Brian Davis actually had to step out to another meeting. I think he's been following that a little closer than I am as it relates to community development.
Okay.
I will circle back with him tomorrow and ask him to follow up on that.
Susan,
Okay.
would you,
That would be great, thank you.
Sure.
Deputy Mayor Honda, would you like that added to one of our future meeting agenda items?
You know, the session will possibly be over by then, by
Okay.
our next meeting, so,
Okay,
thank you.
okay.
Well,
Well,
with that, if
made
he's
it
able
this-
to answer anything for, almost tomorrow with the, no, I guess it wouldn't. Anyway, never mind.
Okay,
I
go ahead.
was
Sorry,
just
Jeff.
going to make, if Bill Vadino's still on, when he said if we had a motion to extend till 11, I was going to say that perhaps we needed a motion that the mayor get a new policy advisor.
I was just looking at the clock saying it was 7:42, and this is the longest land use meeting I've ever attended in my life. So thank you all for being part of this.
All right.
Of course, we had a big agenda because we missed the meeting, so I understand. But I want to thank everyone for being here, thank the staff and those who testified. And unless anybody has anything else, I'd like to adjourn our meeting.
Hi, good
Bye.
All
night.
right, thank you,
Have a
everyone.
good night.
All right.
Bye-bye,
Good
good
night.
night.
See y'all
everybody.
tomorrow at 5.
I'll go
Bye.
apply for a job at UPS.